Hi friend, welcome. Good morning and welcome back. So in today's class we will understand some of the finance functions which are inbuilt in Excel. These are simple functions, not so complicated, but knowing that these functions exist in Excel is good. Okay, so let's start with a few of these functions. That is your basically this function. We will start with PMT, but we will see that we can use any of this function instead of PMT later. So this function is basically useful in calculating the EMI amount or the periodic payment which we make to the in case we have an outstanding loan, or depending upon the present value. So PMT stands for payment. Okay, so let's say if I have taken a loan of 5 lakh rupees from a bank at an interest rate of 10% per annum. Okay, the tenure of the loan is 5 years. So if it's a monthly installment, the number of period, okay, the N per stands for number of period. So number of period will become 12 into 5. That is a year into month per year. My future value is 0. That is the entire amount will go as a part of EMI and nothing will be outstanding at the end of the last payment. So in that case, given this data, I want to calculate what is the monthly payment which will make sure that my loan gets repaid in 60 months. Okay, so I use a function called PMT. It's a simple function, as I said. So it asks me for a rate. The only thing to remember with respect to rate is that rate should be matching with the period which we follow. So in this case, since we are talking about the monthly installment and the rate given to us is an annual, so I have to divide it by 12. Okay, so this becomes my rate. Then as you can see, it's asked me for number of periods. So number of period we have already computed it to be 60. Okay, my present value is 5 lakhs. So since it's okay, let me keep it positive and I'll get my PMT as negative, not a problem. My future value is 0. Okay, type is basically whether the payment is made at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year, and it's an optional function. So by default I assume that all this payment which I am calculating will be made at the end of the period. I close the bracket and I press on enter. So you can see that I get my EMI amount, that is payment, as 10,624, which is a negative amount. It will be a negative amount because I am assuming this present value to be a positive amount, or I can make it vice versa. Now we all understand, especially if we are a finance student, we all understand that this monthly payment which we make, okay, some portion of it is principal and the rest of the portion is interest, right? So Excel also gives you an option to calculate the principal payment in this entire in this monthly installment, right? So let's see how does this PPMT work. So PPMT, again it asks you for a rate will be divided by 12. Okay, it asks you for period. Okay, so here period means that you want to calculate the principal payment for which period. Okay, so if I give 1, it will calculate the principal amount, that is in the total EMI, what is the principal amount in the first installment which I pay. If I give it 4, so it will calculate the principal amount which will be paid in the fourth installment. Okay, in the fourth installment, what is the component of the principal amount, and so on and so forth. So let me put it as 1 for this example. Number of period, again I give 60, present value is 5 lakh and my future value is 0, and I close the bracket. So you see that out of the total installment of 10,624, 6,457 is my principal amount, and as you can guess that the rest will be your interest. Okay, just to cross verify, I also use the formula called IPMT, which works in the same manner as your PPMT, sorry. So it asks me for a rate. Okay, it asks me for a period, that is for which period you want to calculate the interest component. It asks you for the number of period, present value, and finally the future value. Okay, so you get 4167, exactly what we have computed otherwise. So these are the 3 functions to calculate your NPV. Again, you can interchange this function. So let's say if I want to calculate, given the other information, I want to calculate the rate. So you can see that it can calculate the rate and all other informations will be entered by the user, and so on and so forth. So you can use either of this missing data given the rest of the data are available. So you can compute either of this missing data by using one of this formula. Okay. Now future values. Okay, this component called future value, here we are assuming it to be 0. Okay, so in case, let's say instead of making a monthly installment of 10,624, I decide that I will make a payment of 8,000 only per month. So in that case, I want to see that at the end of 5 years, what will be the outstanding loan. So in that case, I will use future value. Why future value is because I want to understand that what will be the future value of this loan given that I am making a payment of 8,000 rupees. So again, it asks me for an interest. Okay. It asks me for number of period. I give it the number of period. Okay. It asks me for a PMT. PMT will be 8,000. Okay. I'll have to put a negative amount because it will be a payment from my side. I give it a present value, which is 5 lakh rupees. Type I did not give, and I close the bracket. So it basically says that if instead of making a monthly installment of 10,064,624, if you make a payment of only 8,000 by the end of 5 years, okay, you will still have an outstanding loan of 2,03,158. Right. So this is how we can use the future value function also. Fine. So now let's understand the other important finance function, which will be used very often by us finance student. That is our NPV and IRR function. So NPV is a very simple formula. The name of the formula stands as it is NPV. So it asks you for a rate, give it a rate. Here we don't need to divide it by 12 because I am assuming that the cash inflow which will come will be a yearly thing. It asks you for the value, so different value. So of course in the year 0, okay, your value has to be a negative because that will be a cash outflow. So including your cash outflow, you give it all the cash flows and you close the bracket and you get your NPV, right? So the NPV for this series of cash flow, that is minus 1000 in year 0 and then followed by a series of positive cash flow in each of the year. At the end of each of the year, the NPV of this project will be 784. Similarly, you can calculate the IRR. In IRR, you just need to give the value rather than the interest rate also. So IRR will be calculated for you, right? Now let's assume that this cash flow is not uniform. That is, the cash flow is not always occurring at the end of a given year. Okay, rather this cash flow is occurring at a given date. Okay, like the date which we see here in this particular row. So in that case, rather than using the NPV, I use the formula called XNPV. Right. So it asks you for a rate, give it a rate. It asks you for values, give it the values, and finally it asks you for the third argument, which is the date. So you give a parallel date and you close your bracket. Right. So you see that your NPV has been calculated for the date-wise payment which you are making or which you are receiving rather. Fine. Similarly, you can calculate your XIRR, okay, for a payment which is not occurring at the end of a period but at different dates. So it asks you for value and then it asks you for the dates. Fine, and you get your IRR. Clear? So again, these are a few functions which will be useful for the finance students. Okay, now this is one of my interesting topic for this class, that is your loan amortization table. Okay, so again I am taking the same example, that is my loan amount is 5 lakh, interest rate is 10%, frequency is basically monthly, that's why 12. So tenure is 5 years. My start date, that is the date from which my loan will be started, is 20th of February, and I have a future value which will be 0. Okay, so let me explain you how do we calculate an amortization table. Amortization table is nothing but which calculates the month wise. Okay, it tells you the period, it tells you what is the total amount paid. In the total amount, what is the principal component, what is the interest component, and finally what is the balance outstanding amount at the end of the given period. Okay, so first I create a series, okay, a serial number. Okay, let me delete this, let me create it again. So first I create a series. Creating a series is easy. So in this case we know that it will be 60, so let me drag it till 60. Okay, let me use the autofill option called fill series, and let me fill it till 60 for 60 months. Okay, you can see that in between I have grouped certain rows because otherwise the amount of data will be too high. So for convenience sake, I have hidden the rows in between. Okay, now let's first calculate the period. Okay, so what will be the period? Now I know that my loan starting from 28th Feb 2015. So there is a function in Excel which we didn't cover in date when we are studying the date function. It's called end of month. So end of month asks you for a start date. You give it a start date, and then you say how many months you want to add after the start date. So I say 1, or rather I link it to the serial number. Okay, because whatever be the start date of your loan, the period will be 1 month after that. So you use this formula and you see you have got March. Now let me freeze this cell, which is the starting date. Okay, let me freeze this cell and then let me use the autofill option. Right, so you saw that I got all the dates filled, the period filled, that is March, April, May. So each month will be added referring to the serial number. So starting from the start date, it will keep adding 1 month year on year. Month on month. Clear? Now we all know how to what is the formula for PMT. Okay, so PMT stands for rate. Okay, don't forget to divide it by 12, and also don't forget to freeze it because we'll be copy pasting this formula for the rest of the rows. It asks you for number of periods. So number of period will be nothing but frequency. Okay, I can directly create it, or I can just link it here, frequency into tenure. Okay, I'm giving further flexibility to my formula. My present value is nothing but 5 lakh. Let me freeze this cell also. Okay, and then it says future value. My future value is 0, and I freeze finally this cell and enter. Right, so I get my PMT. So my EMI for this series of payment will be 10,624, which we already saw in the last in the previous sheet also. We also know how to now compute the PPMT. Okay, and now this period option will be very useful to us. We will see. So PPMT will be your rate. Okay, it says period, so I link it to the serial number because I want to calculate the payment component in the EMI for each of this period. Okay, you will see that for each period the principal and the interest component keeps changing. I also give it the number of period, which is our frequency, into the total tenure. Okay, it asks me for present value. Let me give it the present value. Okay, it asks you for a future value. Let it give you a future value. Don't forget to freeze the cell because you will be copy pasting the formula. Don't freeze the serial number because that has to be dynamic. And I close the bracket and I get my principal amount, and let me fill this data using the autofill option. Right, so you see that the principal component keep increasing as a tenure as a time passes, because with passing month you're paying a certain portion of your loan. So your outstanding balance will keep decreasing, as we will see in few minutes from now. Okay, similarly I can compute my interest component, IPMT. Okay, I will give it a rate, okay, which is F4. Okay, I give it a period, so link it to the serial number. Number of period will again be frequency into tenure. Okay, I will give it a present value, and finally I give it a future value. And I close the bracket and I get my interest component. Again, you will see that interest component keep changing. Okay, and as the month passes, our interest component will keep decreasing because again the balance outstanding is decreasing. So what will be my balance outstanding at the end of first month? It will be total loan outstanding, that is 5 lakh, minus, or in this case plus, because here we already have a negative sign, plus the principal amount which is repaid. Okay, so my outstanding loan will be 4,93,000. Okay, what will be my outstanding loan at the end of second year? Outstanding loan again minus the principal amount which I have repaid, and now I can copy paste this formula. Okay, so you see that each year, at the end of each month, our balance outstanding keep decreasing, and hence the interest component keep decreasing. Since interest component keep decreasing, out of the total EMI, which is a fixed amount, the principal component keep increasing. And finally, exactly at the end of 68th month, okay, by paying the same amount of EMI, okay, our loan depletes to exactly 0. Right, so this is how easy creating an amortization table is with regard to the once we know this easy functions called PPMT, IPMT, etc. Clear? Okay. Now let me help you understand a few depreciation functions which Excel has inbuilt for calculating our depreciation. Okay, again we know that there are 3-4 methods for calculating depreciation. Let me explain them one by one to you. So first one is your straight line method. Okay, straight line method, as we know, is a fixed amount of depreciation every year, okay, based on the original cost of the asset minus the salvage value. Right. So again, Excel has an inbuilt function called SLN. It asks you for the cost of the asset. Okay, it asks you for a salvage value and the life of the asset. and Excel will calculate the depreciation amount each year for you. If you want to create a table, you will have to freeze this cell, okay, and then I can use the autofill option. So my depreciation for all the 9 years will be 900. In fact, since the life of the asset is 10 years, let me increase it to 10, okay, and you will see that the same formula works. Okay, fine. We will just see what happens once the life of the asset gets completed in different method of depreciation. First, let's understand the different methods available for calculating the depreciation. Right. So let's understand the second method, which is sum of year digit, SYD. It's called SYD, not SYN. My mistake. Okay, so it's called sum of year digit. So sum of year digit method is basically used for companies which are involved in mining, etc. Right. So if the life of the asset is 10 years, okay, the way to calculate the way Excel calculates the depreciation rate, or the way as sum of year digit method uses, it will be for first year the depreciation will be 10 divided by, okay, it will add the number of years, so 10 plus 9 plus 8, etc., right, up to 1. Okay, so this is how Excel will do the calculation. Okay, let me exclude the 0. Okay, so that's what the sum of year digit method is. It's again, as I said, used for the mining industry, etc., where the amount of resources is fixed. So it all depends upon how much resources we have utilized in a given year. That's what depreciation is all about. So we say that if the life of the asset is 10 years, and in the first year, if we have depleted it, we have the useful life of the asset was 10 years. So in the first year, we have depleted 10 divided by the sum of the life of the asset. Okay. So no need to worry. SYD the formula will directly calculate this amount for you. So it asks you for the cost again, then it asks you for the salvage value, and then it asks you for the life. Okay, and then it also asks for an additional information that year, the period, right? So for which period you want to calculate the depreciation. So I link it to the this. So you see that we get the depreciation for the first year. Okay, let me freeze this cell and we will get it for the rest of the year as well. So I freeze cell B3, B4, B5. Okay, and now I can copy paste the formula. So you see that every year the depreciation will keep decreasing because we are assuming that the life of the asset or the usability of the asset is higher in the initial year. Okay. Then we have one formula in Excel using, it's called declining balance. Okay. Now Excel has a particular way of calculating this formula, which to be very honest, I don't understand. All I can tell you about declining balance is that it uses a fixed rate as a declining balance method, fixed rate of depreciation. How is the rate calculated is something like this. Okay, so it's 1 minus, okay, now it 1 minus, you can see I have put in a square bracket. So salvage value divided by the cost value, cost of the asset, the whole thing raised to the power of 1 divided by the life of the asset. Right, so using this formula, it calculates the rate of depreciation, and it keep applying the rate of depreciation to the WDV of the asset. Now let me take a minute and explain you the difference in SLN and WDV, although I'm sure you already know it. In SLN method, the depreciation is applied to the original cost of the asset, while in declining balance, okay, the depreciation rate is applied to the WDV, that is the outstanding or the remaining balance of the asset. Right. So first let me explain you how this DB formula. So it asks you for the cost, give it the cost. Okay. It asks for a salvage value. Okay. Let me keep freezing the formula as well. Sorry. Okay. And it asks you for the life, give it a life, and then it says period. Okay. So I guess, yeah. So we give it a period. Okay. Let me freeze this cell as well. Right. So you see that it computes the declining balance, and as I have given you an example that this is how it calculates the depreciation rate, which is 21%. It rounds it off to the 3 decimal place if I am correct. Okay, and then if you copy paste this formula, okay, you see that each year, okay, in the next year, okay, let me calculate the WDV for you. So my WDV for first year will be the total cost of the asset minus the depreciation. Okay. Yes, you are absolutely right. In declining balance or in double declining balance method, the salvage value is not considered initially. Okay, we will see what happens to the salvage value. That is, if Excel is asking for salvage value, definitely it's using it somewhere. We will see where is it using it, right? So at the end of first year, my WDV will be 7940, and Excel have applied a 21% rate to the 7940 and calculated 1633. The difference is because of some rounding off which I have used here. Fine. So this is how the declining balance method works. Fine. Okay. And finally, this is useful, especially this double declining balance method is used very often in US scenario. So what does a double declining method do is it exactly doubles. Okay, by default, if you don't give it any factor, by default it doubles the depreciation percentage for you. How does it calculate the depreciation percentage? 1 divided by the life of the asset, right? So in this case, if the life of the asset is 10 year, okay, so normally depreciation will be 10%, but in double declining method it will increase it to 20% for you. So we will see that double declining balance. So it asks for a cost, okay, it asks for a salvage value, and finally it asks for life and period. Let me just freeze this cell and close the bracket. Fine. So you see that rather than taking 10%, it's taking 20%, which is 2000. Okay. Now let me compute the WDV using double declining balance method. So WDV, as you are right, is 8,000 rupees for us. Fine. In the next year, that is in the second year, as I will see, as I will show you that the depreciation rate will be 20% still, but it will be applied on the WDV instead of on the original cost of the asset. Okay. So second year, my WDV will be existing WDV minus depreciation, and now I can also copy paste this formula. Fine. So you see that almost at the end of the life of the asset, which is 10 year, okay, the asset is close to the salvage value of the asset as well. Fine. Now let's see what happens if I try and calculate the depreciation beyond 10 years. Okay. So let me say 11 and 12. Right. So you see that it throws a number error. The number error is thrown because the life of the asset is 10 years, so it will calculate the depreciation only for the 10 year. The same thing is not applicable for straight line method. It will keep depreciating till the time you copy paste the formula. Right? It doesn't link it to the life of the asset per se. Right? So that's the difference between SLN and the rest of the method. Another thing which you need to notice about the salvage value is that, let's say if I change the life of the asset to 5 years. Okay. Please pay attention here. This is what I'm trying to say. Now you see that after 5 years, all the remaining formula will throw an error, which now we are already aware of, and SLN method will keep calculating the depreciation. But this is not what I'm trying to show you. What I'm trying to show you is here. Now if the life of the asset is 5 years, what will be the rate of depreciation? 1 divided by 5, which is 20%. And since we are using double declining method, what will be the rate of depreciation? You are absolutely right, it will be 40%. Fine. So at the end of 4th year, what is the WDV of my asset? 1296. So the depreciation on this should be 1296 into 40%. So which should be 518. But you see that the depreciation computed is only 296, and it leaves the WDV asset to be not lower than salvage value, right? So what I'm trying to say is, once your asset reaches the salvage value, the formula will stop calculating the depreciation any further on it, right? So in the last year, okay, the last year of depreciation, okay, it will adjust the amount of depreciation so that your WDV doesn't go below the salvage value. This is how double declining method takes care of the salvage value. Fine. So this is something you need to remember, not only in Excel but also in your practical life. Like, this is how you should deal with the salvage value in case of double declining or WDV method of your depreciation, right? One last thing which I want to show you with respect to the depreciation is that if it has a one more argument called factor. Okay, so factor is nothing but by default it takes 2, but if I make it 3, so you will see that it will take double declining method will become now triple declining method, more or less, right? So instead of taking 10%, it will now take 30%. By default it's always taken 2, right? So that's the last thing you can use in double declining method, double declining balance formula. Okay, so yeah, now let me just take 5 more minutes of your time to explain the last part of this finance function, which is called bond pricing. Okay, again there are some inbuilt function in Excel which helps you calculate the price of the bond. Again, the easy one, all you need to know is remember that okay, certain formula like this exists, so that if required you can use it. Okay, let me explain some data which are already populated here. Coupon rate, you are already aware that coupon rate is nothing but the rate which is attached to the bond at which the company pays you the coupon value. Okay, My yield is nothing but the actual cost of the bond to me, right? It can be lower than, higher than, or equal to the coupon value, right? Let me take 7% for example, right? So my yield is nothing but the effective interest rate or my effective return on this bond till maturity. Okay. My settlement date, okay, settlement date is the date on which I have actually purchased this bond. Okay. My maturity date is nothing but the date on which my bond will be matured. Redemption value is nothing but what is the percentage of the face value which will be redeemed to me. Fine. Coupons per year is nothing but the frequency of the coupon. Now let me show you various formula which exist with respect to the bond pricing. First is your next coupon days. Okay, so I write with okay, sorry, I didn't give equal to. Okay, so you see there are various formulas, okay, available for coupon days. For coupons, I use the coupon NCD. Okay, so coupon stands for the formula which is related to the coupon. NCD stands for next coupon date. So I use this formula, and Excel is asking me for various arguments which are already existing here. The settlement date, the maturity date, frequency. Since we know the frequency is 2, I can either directly, I can write 2, I can link it to this cell, or I can link it to any of the cell as well. Okay, so either way I can do that. Fine. And finally it asks me for basis. Now this basis is nothing but various basis which is used for the formula, which is given 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. By default I guess it takes 1, so we can leave it as it is. Basis is not so important until unless you are very particular about the basis, then you can choose one of these basis for calculating the coupon date or rest of the calculation which we will see. And you see that it gives you the next coupon date, which is 15 December 2014. Fine. Similarly, I have a formula to calculate the number of days in coupon period under settlement consideration, right? So this is my settlement consideration. So it will help me calculate the total number of day in this period. Okay, so in this particular, um, whenever I purchase this bond, so in that particular frequency, here it's 6 months. What is the number of days available? So again, I say coup, okay, and I say coupon days. Okay, so I say coupon days, and it asks me for various arguments, that is settlement date, maturity, frequency. I will use semi-annual. Basis is not required, and I close the bracket. And then, yeah, so it didn't. I forgot to press tab after the basis. Let me manually punch it. Okay, so it says 2, and so it says 180. So basically, in this settlement period, okay, there are 180 days. Okay, now I can also calculate that what are the days between my settlement date and the next coupon date. Okay, so again I use coup days, okay, and NC stands for next coupon. So till next coupon, what is your number of days available? And again some similar arguments: settlement date, maturity date, frequency, and basis is not required, right? So it says that till your next coupon days, okay, 149 days are left out. Fine. Finally, it helps you in calculating the price of the bond, that okay, if you are buying this bond today, given the yield, coupon rate, etc., what should be the price of the bond. Also, people who are from the finance background, you do understand that bond, there are two prices for bond. One is what we call the clean price, which is the price as on the last coupon date, and there is something called dirty price, which includes the accrued interest from the last coupon date and the settlement date also. So let's see how do we calculate that. First of all, price. Okay, so again it asks for some similar arguments here: settlement date, maturity date, rate. Okay, so rate here stands for coupon rate, yield stands for the yield. Okay, redemption means what will be the value which will be redeemed at the end of the maturity, and it asks for frequency, which I give semi-annual. Fine, and it gives me the clean price for this bond, that is as on 15 June 2014 the price of this bond was 99.58, and of course there has been some accrued interest between the last coupon date and the settlement date, that is 16 July. So I want to calculate this amount. This is just a simple calculation. First I'll calculate the interest amount. So my interest amount will be my coupon rate into 100, which is my bond value, okay, into, okay, I say 149 divided by 180, or okay, I have to calculate the accrued interest. So I'll have to calculate the interest for 180 minus 149 days. Okay, I divide it by 180 and this will help me calculate the accrued interest. Is it correct? I guess so. Yes. Okay, and we get the dirty price. Okay, so if you want to check whether your calculation is wrong or right, make sure that you equals your uh, yield to your coupon rate. And I see this is 99.99, and okay, let me just check this formula here again. So coupon rate into the bond price, that is the accrued interest. Oh sorry, okay, this will be not coupon rate but the yield. Okay, and now I am correct. Okay, into yeah, so into divided by 180. So this is the interest for 180 days. Okay, so for 180 days the interest is this. So for one day it will be divided by B10 into 180 minus 49. Yes, yes, absolutely right. So the dirty price is equal to 101.12. Okay, yeah, again, yeah, so that's how we calculate our accrued interest and the dirty price. Finally, the last two functions which I want to teach you for with respect to the bond is, one is your duration. Okay, again, the arguments are very similar because these are some of the arguments which are required for any calculation with respect to the your bond pricing. So coupon is okay, it's asking for the coupon. So let me give it into 100. It's not asking for the coupon rate. Let me give it the yield. Okay, let me give it the frequency, and I'm done. Right. So you see that your duration of this bond is 0.693, and those who just forgot, duration is nothing but the sensitivity of the bond price to the interest rate, right? So if the interest rate changes by 1%, your bond price will change by 0.69%. Okay, similarly you can calculate the modified duration also, right? So exactly the similar argument. So I have settlement date, maturity date. I will give it a coupon, that is 6.53 into 100. I will give it the yield, and I give it a frequency, right? And I get my modified duration, right? So these are some of the formulas which we can use in the duration price, and I have created just a button here. You can see that once I play around with this button, I can change the coupon rate, right? How to create this button? It's very easy. It's not at all a big deal, but I need the developer tab for it. So I'll take up this how to create this button to change the value in some other classes. Don't worry, right? So right now just focus on the finance function. So we have the NPV IRR function, or the functions to calculate your interest amount, maturity amount, etc. We now also know how to create this amortization table just by using 2-3 formulas. We also know what are the different depreciation methods available in Excel sheet, and finally the bond pricing. Okay guys, thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed the class. See you again for my next class, which most probably will be the charting class. Thank you.